Hi, my name is Andrea Poser, and I'd like to talk to you today about Vygotsky's theory of the zone of proximal development. Our textbook, Child, Family, School, Community, Socialization and Support by Roberta Burns defines the zone of proximal development as the space between what a child can do independently versus what they can do with support. What this kind of means to me is that students are capable of much higher learning when doing so includes breaking their learning into steps, into pieces that will help lead the student to the end product. The bounds of proximal development are between what a student's actual development is, where they're at starting, and their own learning potential. It's that space between what they kind of know about and what they're able to do with that if we put it together in a way that makes sense and they can use. Our book has taught us that this style of learning is enhanced when collaboration and peer counseling are incorporated into the classroom lessons. What I learned watching this incredible inspirational teacher that I watched is that it's something that I can incorporate into my future teaching that's really going to help my students. It was incredible that I got to watch this theory in action and see these kids coming in there with little bits of knowledge and leaving going, just being confident that I can do this. I didn't think I could, but I can do so much more than I thought I could do. And it's something that's going to make me a better teacher. So the teacher that I observed is Mrs. Webb. She's a fifth grade teacher. She's been teaching for over 8 years now. She started in a really small rural community, and now she's teaching at a rural school that's outside of the Treasure Valley around here. It's a Title I school. It's small. There's not many activities available for extended learning for students outside of the classroom, and even though she has an aide that can come in and do some things with students in her class, a lot of her teaching comes directly from her for every group that she has in her room. And so she's built in this extra intervention and extended time for all of her students. Her classroom is primarily white, but because it's a farm setting where she teaches, there are a lot of migratory worker families, and she has a really large percentage of English language learning students. And ELL has a push out, but she's still dealing with these students in her classroom all the time. So she has many groups that she's trying to reach and teach the same subjects too. So she's learned ways to teach around the different problems she has in her classroom and make sure that everybody has individualized teaching and is learning. After watching Mrs. Webb teach, I was able to see some ideas of how she's putting this theory, pushing these students farther into use in her classroom. I'll move on to some examples a little bit later, but I was able to pick up some pieces of her idealism. And those include that she's just this really great mentor to her students. And she does that because she's always using positive reinforcement. You know, she's pushing them far, but she's telling them, good job, and you can do this. Let's keep going the entire time that she's teaching them. She allows her students ample time for collaboration and provides them a shared responsibility when she does this because they're working together. And so they all kind of feel like they're a part of everybody's learning. And so the entire class is always working together to keep everybody going. She builds steps of learning directly into everything she does. Everything is built in these little pieces that lead to the end product and directly influences her students' attitudes because they know that she's going to give them the next piece and the next piece to push them to the further understanding. I have some definitions from our textbook here that define these terms I placed here, the mentor and the positive reinforcement, peer collaboration, and the shared responsibility. A mentor is somebody who helps guide the students through participation on the task. Mrs. Webb did this by building good relations. Her students all looked up to her and they trusted her to help them achieve their mastery. Being available and providing a positive atmosphere, she gave them tools and encouragement to keep them going and keep pushing that boundary from what they thought they knew to what they really could do. Positive reinforcement. She always had these little comments and they were just given like not just here and there, but every few seconds, you're doing a good job with that. I like how you did this piece here. Show me what you can do more with that. And was giving them specific questions while she was giving these positive reinforcements, asking them, what more can you do? Can you show me more? And it was a tool that she could use to gain respect. And everybody felt like they were all doing a good job. They all were successful. So nobody felt left out and everybody kept going. She had peer collaboration going on all the time. She gave her students ample time to break out into little groups after each piece of her lesson so that they could talk through the parts, and they were learning together with partners. They were conversing about what they were learning and talking about different perspectives and different ways that they learned it that were helping them and what they understood from that. So they were becoming a voice in their learning and little independent leaders and teachers to each other. And the shared responsibility, making sure that everybody understood the requirements, that they could help each other, that they were a part of what was going on. They all tried their very best. My observations included watching Mrs. Webb work mostly through math and science. Just the time frame that I could get there, those were the things that I was able to watch. But during this time, I saw many examples of things that were a part of our textbook this year that helped lead to this, promoting extending the boundaries to this theory of proximal development. Apprenticeship. It's a process by which a novice is guided by an expert, in this case Mrs. Webb, to participate in and master the tasks. Working with their teacher, they were able to increase their development potential. She kept the tasks engaged and exciting and increased her engagement as she went. I saw scaffolding. She was guiding the students to participate by providing support for success through each level of the learning that she was giving them. It was a great way for increasing her support skills. The students were able to watch her perform a task. They then worked through the task with the teacher, and they were able to try the task independently. She called this an I do, we do, you do, and it's basically just what she stated. When she said I do, she was doing it and showing them. When she said we do, she was asking them for input and having them use tools and manipulatives to work through it while she was showing them what they were doing. And finally, they could do the you do, where they were doing it with these things she had given them all by themselves. Modeling, according to Burns, is learning that occurs by observing another person, in this case Mrs. Webb, or other students and peers in their group. When she wasn't directing them herself as the model, she always had them paired with somebody in each group, and I don't think they even realized it, but she'd placed them strategically so that there was a high student in every group with all these different students that knew what was going on and was able to keep showing them when they didn't get it, and they were all a part of their learning. Collaborative leadership was something that I watched, and it's defined as working together and sharing responsibility for the task. The teacher is not only the guidance because the students are helping each other work through the process, but they're building upon knowledge, as they not only learn the skills required for the task, but also how to explain what they are doing to get there. And she always had support skills for all of her students. I finally really made it to the fun stuff of what I came here to talk about, the things that I saw in the classroom. I got to see how Miss Webb was able to create and present her lessons in ways that really pushed the students to the edges of their individual learning potentials. She most importantly did this by giving them many options for their learnings. As they were doing these really hard fractions, and her curriculum was really tough, and it was projected up on a smartboard where they could see it and stuff, but she gave them these tools and things where it was hands-on. They were drawing these little, what she called tapes, out on their papers, where they would mark out the pieces of the fractions and could put them side by side and compare them and see how the different pieces matched up or didn't match up, which one was bigger or smaller. She had blocks that they could put together and label and make pieces of, so that as they're doing all of these things, they're not only seeing that they're building the fractions, but how the pieces apply and why it works, and it gets to the answer that they're trying to reach. They were doing these really tough area problems with different shaped shaped figures, geometry shaped figures, different things. And she actually they were patty papers, like little papers that go between hamburgers, when you're serving hamburgers at places and stuff. And they were a specific size, I don't know, 4x4 or 5x5 inches or something, but they were laying these pieces out and getting the area of these shapes. And then they could cut off fractions of those when they didn't match the shape of it and put the pieces back together to rebuild the shapes and count out the pieces to finally find the area of this. And they could see it and they could put their hands on it and touch it and do it while they were going. And it really connected them to their learning. So when they were looking at the shape and going, I don't get this, I don't understand how I'm going to find all these little pieces that fit in here, they got to use the manipulatives and lay them out and cut them apart and piece them together till they could see that it was 15 square blocks plus 4 more little pieces that fit together to make one more. And they had 16 pieces to make their block, or to make their shape. She did some science projects while I was there, and they worked through this project, and she laid it out. They were doing recycling, but so that it applied to the students directly. It wasn't just something that they talked about in science, but she made it a project, a piece of their school, and made it apply to them by making them build posters. And they had a competition on whose posters were going to be the best. They were going to hang them throughout the school, but to encourage people to recycle and how much garbage and trash they throw away in the lunchroom every day that could actually be recycled and put into something else that they could use, and how it applied to their classroom and their entire world. She used, many different visuals for the students. She used her technology. Like I said before, it was up on a smartboard so they could see it. And she had it up there so that they could see specific answers and examples. But she also had her learning goals defined right up there in front of them, so they knew what they were working towards. And they were up front, big, so they could see them all the time. She used blended learning. So when certain students were done, she had things built on to their Chromebooks and laptops and things so that they could move on. So even those high students, if they're done and they've helped their other students kind of work through it, they weren't sitting there idle and not doing anything. They're still going and learning. And in this way, she met all of her students, her high students, her low students. Everybody was reaching their highest potential because they were all met where they were at, and then continued with engagement and in learning because everybody worked together. Every lesson was led by the teacher, but they were given many opportunities to try independently, to try with the group. So they were trying over and over again until it just really stuck. One of those ways was going to reach everybody. And like I said, her continued use of the positive reinforcement. I've seen so many times it would even pick up students around the student she was encouraging because they all wanted to get that next little comment of how good they were doing and how hard they were trying. And she could use it until everybody had achieved their mastery. And she always came back to those peer groups so they could work through their steps together, and her strategic placement while she was there so everybody could get the help they needed and nobody was left behind. Everybody was always growing. After watching Miss Webb, I feel like I really have some great tools to add to my resume. When given the right tools in a safe learning environment like she had, every child had the ability to extend their learning, to reach that theory beyond what they thought they could do and grow with so much more potential. She allowed the students responsibilities for each other and themselves to feel like they were really taking control of their learning. Belief is huge in making students a partner in their education. I am so honored that I was able to watch a truly great teacher show me how to push the boundaries of learning in her classroom so that I can do it in my own one day and really take those students from what they think they know so much farther to the edges of what they're capable of learning. I'd like to leave you with these words from Malala Yousafzai, and she reminds me the difference that we really have, that we can make as teachers. I wish each and every one of you the best on your journey to motivate young minds. And remember, one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. We can change the world. And here's my reference to our book this year. What an amazing tool we had. Thank you.